Are you an adventurer looking to take your hunt to the next level? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the East Meets West Hunt podcast presented by onX. The onX Hunt app is your premier GPS hunting app. Turn your mobile phone into a working GPS. So there's a few updates within onX here recently that I wanted to share with everyone. So recently, onX launched their Elites benefit program for all customers with an Elite membership. So if you have an Elite membership, which means you have all 50 states, through this program, onX has began partnering with outdoor brands that the guys and girls at onX use and believe in to offer to the Elite members exclusive pricing discounts. And they want to expand this program and add even more value to everyone. So one of the huge additions to that, which kind of goes in line with what we're talking about today, is adding Top Rut to offer to Elite members. This is a free Top Rut membership, which Top Rut is a source for draw odds in 8 of the key Western states. Top Rut covers all of the information you might need to be able to utilize tag applications each year. I'm pumped to give that a try. I have not used Top Rut yet, but they just launched this program here, so I plan on diving into it here in the next couple weeks to see how it compares to some of the other sources that I've used in the past. But as always, if you use the coupon code EMW, you'll save 20% off of the onX Hunt app, whether that's the Elite or the Premium membership. Head over to onxmaps.com. The podcast is also brought to you by Tethered. So Tethered is a team of saddle hunting fanatics with a passionate addiction to whitetail hunting. And they have 2 missions. Essentially, they want to spread the love for saddle hunting to all the sportsman community and also design and engineer the world's best saddle hunting equipment. They've been coming out with game-changing products the last few years, and it doesn't seem to change. I've been using the Tethered Phantom saddle along with the Predator platform, and this past year, I'm not saying that I'll never use a regular tree stand or a mobile tree stand, because I will. I think there's situations for them. But this past year, I used the saddle on every single hunt. So it's really changed the name of the game as far as mobile hunting goes for myself. So you can find out more at tetherednation.com. Maven Optics. So Maven delivers world-class optics straight to the user with no middleman and no retail markup. So they're able to come out with the highest end optics, highest quality optics at half of the price of their competitors. Because I bought my first Maven binoculars back in 2016, I think it was. And then I got to meet some of the guys, the owners at a show, and the people there, they focus on the fundamentals. They want clean, simple designs with the best modern materials, technologies, and then they basically to create uncompromising gear that just works. They don't spend a ton of money on marketing. They don't do a whole bunch of stuff there. They work with people that have the same vision as them, and I really respect that. If you head over to mavenbuilt.com, and if you decide to buy one of their optics, you've used the coupon code eastmeetswest-gift, you get yourself a free gift with any full price optics order. And last but not least, Exodus has a deal for us that's been going on this whole month of January, and it will expire at the end of this month. So, as you know, if you've been listening, I've been using the Exodus Render, which is their Verizon 4G LTE cell camera. I have 2 of those that I've been using for the last couple of years, and the demand for the product in 2020 was incredible, and they actually didn't have any in stock on their Black Friday sale. So they're extending the offer to the East Meets West listeners by giving you $35 off of each camera by using the code RENDER35. So if you want to know about more of some of these pricing opportunities they come up, also be sure to sign up for the Exodus newsletter at exodusoutdoorgear.com. If you're not familiar with Exodus, all their cameras are backed by a 5-year no BS warranty and even includes 5-year theft and damage coverage. So they have the best trail camera warranty that I've seen on the in the market, and I'm almost, I'd say probably over half of my cameras are Exodus now, and I run close to 30. So I definitely rely on them. I think I have just about every type of camera out there, and they just been the most reliable for me. So when I first purchased them a few years back, it was a no-brainer to continue to go down that route. All right, so as far as news with East Meets West in the last week here, I have a few new products, some apparel items that I added to the store. You're the first ones hearing about it. I haven't shared it yet on social media or the email list, but I have 2 new t-shirts and a hoodie. So I have the Head West t-shirt, which has the custom elk design logo on it. So this is it's a funny story behind this logo. I made it myself when I was first designing the logo for East Meets West, and that was my original drawing, and then I realized that it was way too complicated to be an actual logo that went on everything. But I'm like, I'll make a cool t-shirt design someday. So I kept it, and now I just finally released it almost 3 years later to be able to be out there. And then also I have the Adventure logo t-shirt, which is just a regular t-shirt, but it's, if you've had any of our other t-shirts in the past, I like to use high quality, have a little bit of stretch, good fitting t-shirts, and this one has a vintage logo on it, so not too much in your face, nice, you can wear out to dinner. And then lastly, the vintage logo hoodie, which this is a hoodie or vintage logo camp hoodie. So the camp hoodie was designed for, when you're going over to camp, you're heating up the wood burner, still a little cool in there, keep it on, but still not too warm where you're going to be, peeling it off when your buddy starts throwing on too much wood on the fire and smoking you out or heating you out of camp. So this hoodie is kind of a mid-weight cotton polyester blend hoodie, and I have all those over on the website now. Those are shipping right after the orders go in. Those come directly from the supplier. So as I've mentioned before, some of my products now, especially the t-shirts, trying to have directly shipped from the supplier, and that helps out as far as being able to get it out to you quickly. But if you ever have any issues with it or the product quality on anything is not up to your expectations, feel free to reach out to me, as it's very important to me to make sure that everyone's happy with what they got. And you can find that over at eastmeetswesthunt.com. All right, so today's episode is all about Wyoming elk hunting. So I got the guys from Unguided Outdoors on, talk some stories, talk about their strategy. They've been, as you'll hear, they've been hunting the West now for quite a few years and just learning it, coming from different states in the East and Midwest and the South and going out there. And I think it's pretty cool to hear this perspective from them. And so a lot of really good information there. But before we got started, I wanted to give some general information about Wyoming so that can help you as the draw application is almost due here. So February 1st is the deadline of 2021 for you to apply for Wyoming elk. So Wyoming doesn't have your typical over-the-counter options. You can't just go to Walmart and pick up a tag. You have to apply early on. And for their general hunts, they have, I think, over 50 different general hunt areas and have a very healthy population of elk with some decent trophy potential. So you can find some really good hunts. There's a reason why you see a lot of people, if you pay attention to YouTube, hunting elk in Wyoming and always seem to have some sort of success. So license costs, we'll go over that first. For a resident, you can pick up your tag for $57. If you're a resident, you're probably not listening to this. But for non-residents, there's 2 different tags. You have your regular tag and your special tag. We talk about this within the episode, but essentially the special tag doesn't get you any better tag. But what you do is you pay more money. It's $1,268, but you get a little bit better increase in your odds of drawing a tag. the regular tag is $692. So you're looking at an additional about $560, $570 to have increased odds. But the one thing you should pay attention to and check out the draw odds. In some units, it doesn't really help you much by getting the special tag, but it can help if you're for sure you want to hunt in Wyoming and money's not an issue. That might be a good route to go. So to apply in Wyoming, you have to go over on their state game and fish website and create a sportsman ID number if you don't have one already. And that's where you go in to apply. And so when you apply in Wyoming, you have to submit the full cost of the license and the application fee. If you are unsuccessful in the draw, then you'll receive a full refund of the cost of the license, but you don't receive the refund for the application fee. But what is difficult about Wyoming here is they tie up your money for quite a while. So their application deadline is February 1st, but you don't get your money back if you don't draw until the middle of May. So they hold on to it for quite a while. And one of the things, though, about Wyoming is, say you applied for Wyoming Elk and you started applying for some other places, and say you applied for Montana and you end up drawing that tag before you got results back from Wyoming. You have until May 10th to pull your application from Wyoming to be able to get a refund of everything except for your application fee, and you will get your points reinstated the way I understand it. So that's important. If there is one nice thing about it is that you do have that possibility. As long as you can deal with having that money tied up for that long, for almost half the year, then it might be worth it to check that out. And so I'm still unsure. It's pretty sad to say, but I'm still unsure whether I'm going to apply personally in Wyoming this year or not. Trying to figure out. I kind of screwed up. It's almost embarrassing with having a podcast where I try to keep up with the stuff and teach people as far as applications and everything, but I didn't look into Montana enough to know that I should have bought a preference point at the end of last year, and I bought bonus points. But in Montana, this is a whole nother discussion, but bonus points are for drawing a special draw permit, which I'm trying to do, but you have to draw the general tag first, and it's a mess. But anyways, I kind of screwed up there, so it's important to read through this ahead of time and plan, even years ahead for things. But for Wyoming, they have a bunch of different license types. They have type 1 and 2, which are for antlered or any elk. Type 4 and 5, that's just for antlerless. Type 6 and 7, that's antlerless at a reduced price. Type 9 is an archery only tag or license. And then they have the general tag, which is antlered elk. So there's a bunch of different things there to pay attention to as you're over on the Wyoming State Game and Fish website. There's a bunch of options in Wyoming, and it's a great state to throw into your mix as you're starting to, if you're planning on hunting elk every year, you should always have Wyoming in the back of your mind or part of your strategy in some sort of another. So just to give you a couple other quick highlights here. So the special drawing for non-residents represents 40% of the non-resident quota. So I was telling you about special drawing giving you an increase. That's the exact number on how much that increases that. And so your odds are typically better through the special draw. 75% of non-resident tags are reserved for applicants with the most preference points, and 25% of the non-resident tags are drawn at random. So even if you don't have any points, you still have a chance in Wyoming. And then the last thing, which again we'll talk about more in this episode, but non-residents cannot hunt in designated wilderness areas without being accompanied by a resident or a Wyoming guide. So the way I understand it, that's kind of a safety feature, but it's not not very popular among non-residents, but it is what it is, and it's something to pay attention to. So if you're applying to a unit that has 97% wilderness area, you might want to double think that. So pay attention to some of those things there, and good luck applying in Wyoming. All right, so last thing before we get into this episode, go through a Mountain Buck Monday story brought to you on Tuesday, and this story comes from Troy Templeton. As always, you can find the photos of the Mountain Buck Monday posts over on the East Meets West Hunt Instagram, East Meets West Outdoors on Facebook. So the story goes like this. 2020 started with an obsession of a true PA giant that I had a little bit of history with, sheds from 19, and a ton of daylight photos. Well, he was shot the first week of the season, so I had to completely switch gears and areas. I picked up the buck I eventually killed on a cam in the summertime, and as well as a few other good bucks in the general area with a ton of mountain laurel. After bouncing between a few different areas and having some good encounters throughout the season, I keyed in on a top 1/3 bench where a laurel bull below and a laurel above pinched down at this bench. There were a ton of scrapes around, buck bedding nearby, and doe family group living above. On November 13th, I set up downwind of the does, and at 11:30 a.m., I drew on the biggest 10 point in the area, pushing the does around, but I couldn't get a shot. I came back in the very next morning, moved up the ridge a bit, and the 10 came through by himself at first light, but it was at 50 yards. No shot again. Half hour later, I hear a buck grunting and chasing does down the ridge a bit. He ended up following the does up the hill in front of me, and I stopped him at 27 yards and made a good double lung shot. An hour later, I found him piled up 100 yards away, a big, heavy, beautiful 9 point. I've lived in the area for 4 years and feel blessed to now arrow good bucks 3 out of the 4 seasons. So I know Troy personally, and he puts a ton of time in to learning and scouting and hunting these deer. It's well-deserved and not by accident that he does well just about every year. So I definitely recommend you head over to social media pages and check out the photos of Troy's deer and congratulate him on that. Okay, so on this episode, let's jump right into it with the guys from Unguided Outdoors. All right, welcome back to another episode of the East Meets West Hunt podcast. And tonight I'm joined by a couple of guys that are in a hotel room staircase. Yeah, staircase. Kyle McDonald and Phil Baker. How's it going, guys?
So I'm Kyle McDonald, and it's pretty wore out, man. Yep, we're having a good time down here, Beau. Chasing these ghosts around in the cornflakes.
Yeah, so you guys are on what, mule deer and Coues deer hunt down there in Arizona?
Yep, we're down here chasing the late season, over-the-counter, anybody can do it hunt for archery anyways.
Is this the first time that you guys have done this hunt?
So I done it last year, pretty much the same dates, and we mainly hunted Coues deer. And then, so Kyle and Ben and Ryan came with me this year. So,
gotcha. That's awesome. So how's the hunt been going so far?
Have you ever tried to hunt whitetail off the feet off the ground in the middle of a field and then dump cornflakes on your feet right as you step? Or eat Rice Krispie treats? That's exactly what it's like.
It's dry. It's dry down here.
It's dry as an understatement. Every water hole is dried up. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, so the spot and stock game's a little bit difficult, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I will say, if you're going to come down here and do this and it's dry, or actually probably do it at all and want to be successful, tip number 1, when you see the deer and you see a buck, because it is antler deer only, you can't shoot the does. Well, when you see a buck and you want to go after that buck, you need to try and figure out where he's going and get about 200 yards in front of him, because they will hear you. if you try to get closer than that.
Really?
It's actually dude. I'll say this: I was glassing a mountainside. Phil and Ben went to the other side of the mountain, and they were walking a creek bed. And I had ranged the creek bed, and it was over 300 yards with my rangefinder. And I was sitting there, and there's no wind up here ever, and so it's just super quiet. And me and another guy that was hunting with us, I said, Trevor, I said, do you hear that? And I could hear Phil and Ben walking in a creek bed 300 yards away. It's crazy, dude.
Yeah, so if you can hear them, they can definitely hear that 10 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a good time though. It's just something to kind of come do, and there's not a whole lot else going on,
Yeah, no, I've been wanting to do that hunt for a few years now. Before we started recording, I was telling you my dad had drawn a New Mexico tag that was like really, really difficult to draw. A buddy of his asked him to do it, and he had just put in, and it was like less than 1% chance, and he drew it, and it was this time of year, similar hunt to what you guys are doing in Arizona, but he's had similar weather conditions that year and said it was really difficult. But I've also talked to guys that have done that Arizona hunt when conditions were better and said it's an absolute blast. And I mean, there's nothing better, I guess, to me than taking time out of January in Pennsylvania to go out to Arizona and get to hunt, because there's not a whole lot going on here at this time.
Well, look us up next year. We might do some collaboration and go chase some deer and stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, from the sounds of it, you guys have been seeing some pretty good ones too.
Oh, dude, in all honesty, we've been inches away from killing several. So it's just a lot of things have to go right. And that's hunting. I mean, that's when it comes right down to it. But here is just seems like you have a lot more things that have to go right. So
Phil had sent a text to Sam Soholt, and he said, Sam, where's all the deer that are dumb enough to let you have a 40-yard or closer shot? And Sam said he's never seen one.
That's funny.
And he's been doing this for what, 5, 6, 7 years or longer?
Yeah.
It's crazy, dude. So it's interesting to say the least.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I hope in the next couple of days here, you guys end up, at least one of you is being able to punch a tag. If not, well, you got a crew there, don't you?
Yeah, we've got, how many tags? We got 5 tags.
Yeah.
So we've got 5 tags. The good thing about these tags, though, is if you buy them for the January 1 season, you can hunt that tag for the over-the-counter seasons, even into December 31st of the entire year. So next December, we'll be able to use these tags up until the 31st.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That's awesome for Arizona, and that helps you, if I'm not mistaken, with being able to for the draw applications, right? Depending on when you buy your tag, you don't have to buy that again when you're applying.
Yeah. So the main reason is obviously we're going to apply for points in Arizona for several species. So you obviously have to buy that license anyways, which is like $160. And so you're going to buy that anyways. You might as well just come out here, grab a deer tag, and maybe hunt once in January. And then if you don't, tag out or something, you can come back in December. So
nice. That's cool. Well, I guess I'd like to transition into, first hearing a background of you guys and what you started with Unguided Outdoors and just kind of your journey into Western hunting. So I don't know if Kyle, if you want to start with your background, then we'll transition to Phil and kind of what you guys have created there.
Yeah. So really our backgrounds are relatively really close to the same. My mom's family is from New Mexico. And all the way up until I was about 13, I don't remember what year it was, New Mexico used to have over-the-counter rifle mule deer. So I grew up hunting New Mexico mule deer, even though we lived in Alabama and Mississippi. I think from the time I was about 15 or 13, we quit going because it went to draw, and nobody in my family was that really into it at that point. Dad decided he wasn't going to fool with it. And so I didn't go mule deer hunting again until I'm 29, and I think I went mule deer hunting when I was 20 or 21. And then that same year, we went mule deer hunting, and I shot my first mule deer, archery. And then I think, 10 or 15 days later? No, you called me as soon as we got back home and said, hey, let's go on an OTC elk hunt. And we'd done a unit down there, and me and a buddy drove from Alabama. We had just drove from Colorado to Alabama. I got home, I turned around, changed clothes, got back in the truck, drove from Alabama, picked him up in Tulsa, and I met Phil and his two cousins in Colorado. And I think we got in super late for some reason. So me and Trevor, the guy that I went with, we slept in that morning. In the first elk hunt, I couldn't cow call. I couldn't do nothing. And we didn't know nothing about it. When I say green, I'm talking super green. And this would all be before like Corey Jacobson was doing Elk 101 or anything. I didn't know nothing. And so, and we went in. We was about 20 miles in by the time we got in there on quads and on foot.
Yeah, at least, yeah.
It took forever. So we was way in. And me and Trevor, I'm a smaller guy. And then Trevor, he's 6'3" and about 300 pounds. And we slept in a two-man, like, little backpack tent. And we were on top of each other. It was miserable, dude. Woke up, had frost on our beards. We'd never experienced anything like that. And so we slept in that morning, go right out of the tent. Trevor cow calls. And probably we had a bugle back at us. And he's like, well, let's go. So I'm running a little video camera. And this Trevor cow calls again. Sure enough, this bull sounds off. We ain't 300 yards from the tent, set up in a meadow, and we didn't know at the time that the caller was supposed to pull back and whatever else. And we called. We had him on camera. He was probably about 300 to 350 inches herd bull off of his cows. And I was like, man, this is the easiest thing we've ever done, And we was freaking out. We was freaking out.
And then we seen one more elk the entire trip.
Oh,
that's kind of like how we got introduced to elk hunting and, hunting out west. And it was just, a struggle from there. And so that's kind of how I got into it. And then, Phil can kind of tell you his experience.
So pretty much, yeah, I think I went on my first elk hunt the year before Kyle and Trevor went. And it's a crazy story that I've got this, so like Kyle was saying, we all grew up kind of in church camp and stuff together. And so this guy, he was actually the evangelist preacher guy that would go around and preach some of these camps. Well, me and him, every time I'd see him, he's talking about elk hunting, and he's from Oklahoma. So, he used to go out west and they, for like 20 years and, running, they would go out west and elk hunt. And so, as time went on, I kept pressing like, hey, man, I want to do it. So finally I said, I'm going to do it. And he kind of, prepped me a little bit. And we went into a place that he had never been before. Nobody had ever been before. And me and my brother, and my cousin pull in day one. We drove through the night. And I think we got the tents and everything set up by like 3:00 in the afternoon. And coming from Indiana, driving through the night, and one of the guys there at the camp, which they had mule deer hunted a little bit in there, but they had never elk hunted, and it's western Colorado, and so he was like, man, let's just set up tents and we'll just kind of drive around and just get a feel for the land, And here I am, Kyle will tell you, I'm a pretty hardcore guy, and so as soon as I get into camp, I grab my bow and I'm like, well, me and Cameron, we'll go, which is my cousin, we'll go over here and we'll just start glassing off some knobs. I wasn't into the driving around, getting a feel for the area, So me and Cameron get on this knob and start glassing. Well, we got there so fast that I got altitude sickness because we went straight up in the hills, and I think we were at like 9,000 feet probably. Not super, super high, but we had drove through the night, just went right up there. And so I'm laying down on my back on this knob, sick. And Cameron's glassing, and when we see an elk, we wasn't sure, if it's a cow or a bull or whatever. And so I'm like, dude, there's an elk down there. We're going down there to try to kill it. We'd never even seen an elk, And so we get down in the bottom, with this elk. And once we get down in the bottom, we're like, holy smokes, how can we see anything down in here? And so all of a sudden, on the way out there, we stopped at the Walmart, obviously to buy a license and stuff. So I picked up one of those little green, I don't even know what they're called, but you bite on it and blow. It's a Primo's call.
Okay.
And so I just squeak a little bit with this thing, and this bull bugles up on this hill, in the oak brush. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, there's an elk right here. And so the thing runs down right by us at like 55 yards. I pull back and shoot this bull directly in the heart. It takes like 5 steps and dies. And so I'm standing there like, what in the world? I'm talking like the first hour of being in Colorado. And this is over the counter too. And so, dude, me and my cousin walk up to this, for us, we're from Indiana. We had never been out west. We're deer hunters. We deer hunt a ton. And, but we had never seen an animal of this size, laying there. And so, man, we walk up to it. I'm like, good God, it's the size of a horse, And so that was my first elk hunt. And then after that, we went with Kyle the next year, and then it just progressed into lots of research and then playing some odd figures there in Wyoming as we've been able to draw several years in a row. So.
Oh man, you guys both had some incredible first experiences elk hunting.
Yeah, but then we had a whole bunch of suck afterwards.
Yeah, there were some bad days on that second year.
Yeah, for sure. God.
Hey, one thing that I'm noting here is you guys started going out there at a pretty young age. I know, Kyle, that you taken away from what you did when you were a kid going out to New Mexico, but just when you guys started going elk hunting there, you're both around 19, 20 years old?
Yeah, right around that early 20s age. Feels a few years older than me.
Yeah, same for me.
Yeah, I started when I was 24, I think, is when I started going out, which was in 2016. I'm 28 now, so it was, I was a few years older than you, but it definitely takes some drive and stuff to do that. And I wish I would have done it earlier, that would have been my biggest thing is like, why didn't I start doing this earlier? I'd thought about it. I dreamt about it, watched videos and stuff. And it took me just a little bit, a few years out of college to figure it out that I wanted to do it. And after we did it that first year, in which we went out for like 7 days and backpacked it and stuff, and we struggled. We didn't know anything similar to what you did, and I had the resources that time. I started right away with University of Elk Hunting at Corey Jacobson's course. So, I mean, I thought I knew a lot, but I didn't at the same time, until you get that experience. I think one of the things that I tell people that are trying to get into it is just go and do it. I mean, that's your do as much research as you can and get that information, put yourself in a good place, but at the same time, don't ever not go because you feel like you're not ready. I don't know if you'll ever be completely ready for your first trip.
Yeah, that's good advice for sure.
Yeah. And did you guys, I heard you say that you had filmed it. So did you start filming right from the beginning with it?
No, so kind of getting into that. Me and Ryan and another buddy, in fact, Trevor's here with us. It's my wife's cousin. All of us had kind of messed around with filming and photography, and Trevor, he had gotten into. He was kind of sponsored there for a little while in bass fishing. He'd done a lot of like media content. He's the same age as us. Me, Ryan, and Trevor are all the same age. Grew up together, whatever. And so we had, like me and Ryan had started a channel called Real Deal Productions and filmed a bunch of stuff off of a GoPro. And I think some of it's still on YouTube today. But we didn't really fool with like starting Unguided until 2018. And it just so happened that we were up on top of a mountain and shot a bull, and we was filming anyways. And then after shooting that bull, one of the guys was posting it's Ben, that's who it was, me and Ryan. I had filmed, Ryan was calling, and Ben shot. And we was like, man, we got to start a channel. And so Ben's sitting there posting his photo, and he hashtagged Unguided. And, you know, just kind of, we were really proud of what we had done, you know, with the bull and stuff. And it was actually a really good bull. And so we was like, man, that's a really good name for a channel. That's a really good name for a group. And we looked it up. There was, you know, there's like a few odds and ends, like Unguided. I think there's Unguided Duck Calls, and there's a couple like Facebook group chats that are called Unguided or something. But nobody had really done anything with the name, and so we started Unguided Outdoors, trademarked the name, bought the domain, and started on Instagram. And then we posted a few videos, and here we are, what, a year and a half. What was going on year, what is this, 3 now? Yeah. Yeah, so September 2018. So September this past year was 2 years. So we're about 2.5 years into it.
Oh, wow. For some reason, I thought you had been doing that longer with Unguided. I mean, you guys have a ton of content on your YouTube page, and I was saying in the last probably 6 months or so, I've really dove into a lot of your videos and stuff. And I mean, they're all great videos. I'm not just saying that. There's a ton of channels out there, but you guys have some absolutely epic videos from not just elk hunting, from everything across the board. But yeah, you definitely went into it full bore.
Yeah, it was one of them things that, and I appreciate it, you know, the nice things you're saying about the videos and whatnot, but it's one of them things that it was kind of like our group of guys was the group of guys that would like, hey, dude, do you want to go elk hunting? And they would make that phone call, and it was just a group text, and we always ended up being the guys that would go, or like Phil coming out here to Arizona, or we would go do these weird bow fishing trips, or Phil doing a tuna trip, or this year, Phil got a scuba certification last year, and Ben's, he scuba dives, and so we're going to get into spearfishing. But the whole, I guess, mantra behind Unguided Outdoors, it's not knocking guides at all. It's just the thing that, like, we know we're blue collar guys, and we work jobs. And that being said, a lot of times them guide fees and the things that you spend will keep people, like, for instance, like my uncles and them, they've always wanted to go to like Saskatchewan, or they wanted to go do these crazy Midwest hunts and stuff, and they would never do it because they couldn't afford guide fees. And so we wanted to produce something that
helps people realize that they can go do
right,
it.
Exactly. Without, you know, a DIY of anything and everything outdoors. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and I'm impressed that you guys got that name. I feel like someone should have scooped that up a while ago.
Yeah, just got lucky, and that's what I'm saying. We trademarked it the second we thought of it, and we did a pile of searching. And like I said, there's a pile of odd and ends, and ever since we popped up, you know, there was a bunch of people. You know, you'll see, you know, several Unguided, you know, different things. But as far as the full name, Unguided Outdoors, it's just us. So we got lucky on that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and I think it's impressive. Like I was saying, I'm not trying to sit here and just blow your guys' heads up, but I truly think it's impressive. Like with you guys, you know, not being from the West, all the Western hunting success that you've had with your group and being able to film it all. And I mean, and I'm not knocking, you guys have a lot of great whitetail content as well, and some stuff there. I just watched the video here recently of, I think it was you, Phil, with your hunt in Oklahoma on that giant 8-point that you shot frontal there. I mean, like, there's some just absolutely awesome videos. I think that you're living up to your mission, I guess, with it pretty well. So that's again, I just want to give credit where it's due, and I think that I really enjoy what you guys are doing.
Yeah, we're trying to put out some content for you, man. It is difficult to try to make everything happen in the moment sometimes, but we're going to press on, and hopefully we can get some decent content out of this trip here in Arizona. Yeah. I'm not sure how it's going to turn out.
I'm sure you'll turn something out. I mean, it's as much as love to fill tags, it's also pretty real when you don't too. So I don't think anybody will be upset about it except for yourselves.
That's what we tell each other every time we go on a trip. We're always like, hey, we have to have a good time, because if we don't kill something, then that's the only thing worth something.
Yep. Yep, that's true. So
I'll be honest about this. It's been different because we didn't know anybody in the industry. So, I mean, when I say, dude, we're green and don't know nothing, and I mean, like when I say we're like blue collar dudes, we just like enjoy hunting. Even now, like somebody the other day had commented something really hateful on our YouTube video. And they were dogging Phil for shooting that deer frontal. And I mean, like 26 yards, you're talking about cantaloupe or bigger, kill zone, Phil at 30 yards, I mean, the guy can shoot. And the guy was just dogging us. I'm talking about sending this down the road. And I'm like, man, we're like normal dudes that enjoy hunting.
Yeah, we're not robots.
Yeah, we're not actors.
Yeah.
And like if we get that shot and it's a buck and he's that confident and you watch the video, I mean, it was a very good shot. It's crazy like us, trying to bite our tongues and act, because that's not who we are,
Yeah, I mean, you very well could watch one of our videos and hear something that is probably not normal, but we're literally the way we're around each other and we're always cutting it up and like, in one of the elk videos, we call each other idiots sometimes, that's just us, the way we are with each other. It's just emotion and everything, and we definitely in the moment, we definitely have a good time for sure, man.
And I know I personally appreciate that realism when it comes to it, and not just being, it like that frontal shot. I could see how people would get like for some reason worked up over. I shot a deer frontal a few years ago, and I got some criticism on the podcast with it. People even email me directly about it, and I'm like, you don't know the situation, My dad says, he goes, that's one of the most lethal shots that, under 30 yards that you can take. If you're confident and you shoot all the time and you're prepped for it, and it's not for everybody, but if you feel confident in it, how is that? I don't get how that's any less vital than anything else. I mean, if you either get them or you don't. I mean, it's a pretty small window there. It's a decent sized window, but, as much as you definitely don't want to, wound a deer or anything, but for the most part, it's either dead or they're going to live or you missed, you know?
Well, and then you've got, people saying, hey, I think you deer hunt quite a bit because I think I'm pretty sure I follow you on Instagram. You're always running up in the mountains and hunting those whitetails. So you deer hunt enough to know when a deer comes in, that deer was curious to what we was. He had heard something. He had got up and he was curious to walk over there. Okay, take a couple steps. And then that deer if he was turning to run. And so, you've got people on there commenting, well, you should have waited for him to turn broadside or something. I didn't in the moment. Like you said, the moment is totally different for every person. And that deer come in and I just instinctively drew back and shot him where I knew that could be vital. And, there's things that you would have to live with if it turned out, uglier than what it did, but it turned out good. And we've actually killed several. I'm pretty sure you've shot frontal shots. We've killed several animals, frontal elk, and it's definitely not something that I would advise past, where you're really comfortable on shooting. I wouldn't advise it past 30 yards. So it's just, man, I mean, everybody's different. People just need to chill out and relax and just enjoy the video. That's what they need to do.
Yeah, people get hung up on what ifs, man. It's the craziest. I never, me and Phil were talking, and I don't want to get on this big tangent, but this is, a small conversation because it's a rabbit hole. But me and Phil was actually talking last night. He said, man, when I get on a video and I comment because I care. He's like, but there are people like they like set down to just rip you a new one over something that's a what if that never even happened. It is the craziest thing that we never seen that side before until we started a YouTube channel.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, they're always the loudest, the ones that, there's for every one person that says something negative, there's 1,000 that think positively of it. They just might not always comment or share, that stuff. Think about like reviews on things. Most of the time, people are just going on there to bitch about something. They're not because they're mad, about something rather than, say I bought something off of Amazon that worked out and stuff for me. The chances of me actually going on there and reviewing them are pretty slim. If someone was mad, got something that didn't work out, they're a lot more apt to go and say something negative, and you get. Those are normally people that are just sitting there in front of their computer on their phone and just mad at the world in general. And that's kind of what I've tried to take from it. That's what I've tried to take from it. And it is what it is. It's I guess that comes with putting yourself out in public a little bit. It's been something I've been trying. I still struggle with sometimes. I'll get kind of worked up about a comment or something that comes out, and I have to talk to myself like, listen, if they don't want to check out your stuff, then they don't need to. So just move along.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's exactly right. So.
Yep. But anyways, no, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that really drives me nuts when people do that and just being negative on it, and I just literally think that they're just unhappy with themselves, so you got to put someone else down too. For sure. They're not out there filming or shooting big 8 points on public land, or they're probably upset with something they did. If you the way that I see it, and I don't want this to come across arrogant, but the way that I see it, if the shot was fatal, regardless of if I agree with it or not, I've seen them dudes that'll take. I think them guys where they shoot a moose at like 850 yards. Regardless of it, I agree with that 850-yard shot. The moose was dead nearly instantly on the shot that I had seen on YouTube. So regardless of how I feel about it, I have seen people wound animals at, within 20 yards with a bow before, when the deer was perfectly broadside. You've seen it on TV growing up. So to me, as long as the shot's fatal, that's the most important thing, regardless of how you feel about how it was taken, Yep. And even ones that end up not being fatal, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody, there's things that happen, whether that's out of your control, and and that happens. Like, give someone the benefit of the doubt, not.
Oh, dude, we've had people get on our channel and comment, I've never ever wounded an animal ever. I've bow hunted for 35 years. I've never wounded an animal, You just sit back and think, man, wow.
Yeah. It's like, okay, you definitely, you might hunt once a year, one day a year. I don't, I don't know. Again, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. We could for an hour here,
here's some advice that I would definitely give that we've learned in elk hunting from being in the East, being out West, whatever. We have learned that you are presented very small opportunities when elk hunting. And so we've been doing this now for several years. I have very rarely, if ever, seen a bull elk come walking in broadside.
At 20 yards.
At 20 yards, it's just going to sit there and look at you, eat, I just haven't seen it. And I've seen a pile of elk get shot. And I've seen, more times than not, way more times than not, them shots be fatal. But you can't, sit there and wait for the perfect shot when elk hunting, because you're just not going to have them. Normally they're coming in at you, looking at you. They're looking for something, or they're skirting around, or, you have to stop them, And that's the difference.
There's a lot
between
of elements that go into it.
Yeah, the difference between punching a tag and not punching a tag.
Oh, it does. It is the difference for sure.
Yeah, shooters shoot, and when you have those opportunities, like you're saying, I'm by no means anywhere near an expert elk hunter, but I just from my experience of hunting them over the for 4 years there, I didn't fill my first tag until my fourth year, which I was presented with a pretty good shot. It was wide open broadside at 60 yards. But other than that, I after I started this podcast and talking to people like Corey Jacobson and ones that are consistently successful, I was sharing with him some of my experiences that I had the years leading up to it, where I was at full draw at 20 yards, and I'm like, there this was going on in these situations. There was only a small window here. I didn't have the exact range, and I learned pretty quickly that you got to make the most of your opportunities, because there's never a perfect scenario with it. Well, rarely, I should say.
Yes, it definitely. What we've learned with elk hunting is exactly that. You have to somehow make things happen. In that it's sometimes it's between, like Kyle said, a punch tag or not. You got to be. We are pretty aggressive in our elk hunting. We probably don't. Like the bro guys that born and raised, they probably bugle quite a bit more than we would. But as far as, when we find a bull and how aggressive we play it, we play pretty aggressive. And I think that's, we did, like, if you haven't watched our elk season this past fall, you need to go in there and check it out, because it's pretty good stuff. So it kind of speaks for itself.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, shameless plug there.
No, I think people should check it out.
By the way, Beau, I watched that elk hunt that you did. That was in Idaho, wasn't it?
Yep, that was in Idaho.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool hunt.
Yeah, well, thanks. That was an awesome hunt, and I was actually banking on, if I didn't draw, well, I'm trying to draw a tag in Montana this year, and I was like, well, if I didn't draw that, then I'd just go back to Idaho again. That was an awesome experience, and kind of had a little honey hole there to us, and then Idaho changed everything, and they sold out of most of their tags on day one.
Yes, they wrecked it. They wrecked the whole process. I think it was a madhouse on that day one.
Yeah, I didn't. I guess I should say that I was not prepared at all for that to happen. Like, I didn't even, assume that. Apparently everyone else thought it was going to happen, because everybody was on. I
will tell you this is what they kept it pretty hush hush. There's a lot of people that knew about it, and I'm not going to name names, but there's a lot of people that knew about it and kept it hush hush, because some of those tags were going to be at a premium, dude. They didn't want. There's some people out there that didn't want it totally advertised, and that's probably why. I was caught off guard myself, for sure.
Yeah. Well, but if you prepare for it, there's some other opportunities. the over-the-counter options are definitely dwindling in the West, and I think that. So I guess the way to adapt to that, because, it's not changing, essentially. So you can either be upset about it, or figure out how to play into the game and figure it out yourself. And, one of those things, one of those opportunities is hunting in Wyoming, and which it's not, I guess, over the counter from the speak. You have to apply for it, and you have to apply for it soon. And which, one of the reasons for having you guys on right now is to talk about that, because February 1st is the deadline for applying in Wyoming. I'm thinking so.
Yeah, the deadline, I think, is January. Yeah, it's the end of the month for for elk.
Yeah.
Now their deer and other things are, I think, in May. But
yeah, for elk though, it is the end of the month. And but so I'd like to, if I'm not mistaken, your guys' YouTube channel that you're talking about with some of these hunts, there was some of them took place in Wyoming. Is that correct?
Yeah. So all our elk hunts this year was in Wyoming, and I think the only elk hunts on our channel is New Mexico. The only other states is New Mexico, and then there's some other Wyoming stuff from like 3 years ago. And so what you want to know about the Wyoming deal?
So I guess going into it here, what how does Wyoming fit into your like application strategy? I don't know if you guys are applying in a bunch of states or if that's kind of what, your bread and butter that you're focusing on. How does that play into what you guys are looking at for the year?
So Wyoming is probably, we try to prioritize it because obviously we know where we go and hunt in Wyoming, it's general units. So they're more or less over-the-counter units because the residents in Wyoming, they can go, to Walmart and buy a tag and hunt the same units that we would hunt, but we have to apply for them. And so those general tags, those are because of the draw process, and there's obviously not a ton of residents in Wyoming. It makes for pretty good elk hunting. And, you probably watched, some Corey stuff with Elk 101, going, they've hunted, several different units there in Wyoming, and they normally do really well. Born and raised, been to Wyoming, so some of the, it's hard to ignore Wyoming is my point. And so we kind of try to prioritize it if we can make it happen. The draw is getting worse.
The point creep for sure.
Yeah, the point creep is getting worse. I don't know. I think Go Hunt just came out with odds, and I haven't even got to get on there and look as far as last year's. But I guess I can say this. Might as well say it. So the way we use the draw odds to our favor is Wyoming is one of the only states that shares. So if you apply as a party, they round the points out and even them out between whoever's in that party. So you could have a guy, say if you have a party of 3, you could have a guy with 5 points and the other guys could have 1 point or 0 points. And those 5 points would be divided between all 3 people. And so we just try to play the odds of, hey, we've got to prioritize Wyoming because it's such a good state to draw in most of those general units that you have to kind of, prioritize that over most everything else. It's one of the first draws. Now they have changed Wyoming as of last year. They changed it to where the results don't come back until, was it June?
Yeah, it's after everything else.
Yes, it's after Colorado's results. It's after New Mexico's results. It's after, I think, most everyone. And so used to, you would be able to apply in Wyoming and find out if you draw. If you didn't draw, you could move on to these other states. And obviously, our group for several years now has been, applying for points in a bunch of different states. That way we have options, kind of like you're talking about going to Montana. It's definitely on our radar. We've been buying points in Montana for 5-6 years. And so, my advice for Wyoming would be try to figure out the system, try to maybe make a couple trips to Wyoming. Wyoming does have there's normally a few leftover elk tags after the draw is up. Some of those sometimes you'll find a hidden gem, but some of those, leftovers that are in there, year after year after year is kind of hard to get into, as far as access.
Me and Ryan got, was it Unit 7?
Unit 7, yeah, they have some cow tags.
Yeah, that's easy to get.
Yeah, those are pretty easy. But
I gotcha. And with that being said, it's with not getting the results back all the way until June or whenever it is, that makes it kind of difficult when you're fitting it into your plan. Can you get refunded? Say if you drew New Mexico, a good unit that you would like, better, and then you end up drawing Wyoming, can you turn that tag back in?
Yes, you can. Yep.
Okay.
But would you? No.
Well, it depends.
No.
It depends, but you can. Yeah, the question is, you can turn the tag back in. It depends. Yeah, like Kyle's saying, if you want to, several of us this year, we'll be applying like we always do in New Mexico for trophy units. And then I think a couple of us try to get back into Wyoming. We've got a lot of logistic plans for 2021. It's going to be a killer year, sounds like. So, but yeah, definitely can turn it back in because, like you're saying, if you're going to try to, plan out your year, then Wyoming definitely made that a little more difficult for everyone.
Yeah. And one thing to note is non-residents, if you're going unguided, that you can't hunt wilderness areas. And, that's definitely something that comes into play when you're doing your, e-scouting or kind of looking at units. If I'm not sure if there's any of them that, are completely wilderness areas, but obviously it's not somewhere you want to apply if you're trying to do it DIY.
Yeah, they definitely, some of those wilderness areas, especially up like the northwest corner around like Yellowstone and stuff, some of that is because, with the bears and things, they want people in there that kind of know, if you're going in that deep, kind of know what they're doing, but I mean, honestly, there's a lot of country. If you draw a general tag in Wyoming, there's a lot of country that you can hunt that's really good elk hunting that you would never have to worry about the wilderness deal.
Gotcha.
I mean, I am every year I leave a survey hoping that Wyoming changes that, just because it opens up more land to access for non-residents, because I am a non-resident. Residents probably feel a little different, but yeah.
Yeah, and maybe if this is any way kind of implies onto where you guys are at, then you don't have to answer it. But have you had to deal with bears or anything, or how do you deal with that as far as in your mind and just kind of precautions with it?
We got asked this question. What was it, on Instagram, or someone had wrote us and asked us? I can't remember where it was. It was on Instagram. We done that question deal. They asked us, how would you deal with bears? So like for us, just for instance, so like we do a lot of bow fishing like South Louisiana, and there's a lot of stuff out there that can go wrong. So you just have to pay attention. So, being some Eastern guys, we just treat that stuff with caution. We hunted a really deep unit in New Mexico that was really rough in 2019. I think you just want to treat everything with caution, pay attention to what you're doing, carry bear spray. That's really all that you can do.
Yeah.
I would just say that, like, pay attention, don't, if you're sitting there, cleaning a carcass or whatever it is that you're doing, have somebody, that's paying attention while you're elbow deep in guts, or whatever it is. It's really anything. Proceed with caution, carry bear spray, and I've said it 10 times, but pay attention to what's going on, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
The only. I mean, I'll say this: the only place that we have had to really deal with the grizzlies is Idaho. We went on a spring bear trip this past spring there in like northern Idaho, like in the Panhandle, and so we would carry spray and I think we carried like a 12-gauge shotgun, just one guy. But as far as Wyoming, we haven't really hunted units with the grizzly, especially up in the northwest corner. So
yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I know like when we were in Alaska, it was different because everything was pretty open. You can see a ways. So like when we had our caribou down, we just kind of made it a rule that we weren't gonna. Not one person was gonna carry meat while the other one was cutting up. Like we'd stay together and just use, like you said, use common sense, use caution with it, and try to take the necessary precautions. But at the same time, anybody that's really afraid of bears, I guess you either gotta come to be honest with yourself. You gotta come to grips with that's what you're going to be dealing with, or hunt a different area that doesn't have them, which there's quite a few maps out there that show the grizzly ranges and everything else. But
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely overthought. I think that, it's a lot safer than some people probably think. You just definitely don't want to be ignorant, and flail around and do things that you should, I mean, common sense really. And, and just pay attention. Some of those units up in the corner there in Wyoming, they definitely are some units that you definitely want to pay attention when you're out there, if that's what you're going to go and do and all that. But we definitely haven't. Not that we won't. I would say sometime we eventually will end up in there somewhere, but
yeah,
we haven't yet. So.
All right. Well, let's. I'd like to get into a little bit of talking about your last year that you had spent in Wyoming, or really any experience. If you have any stories that stand out to you about hunting in Wyoming, any stories that might have ended in success, ones that you learned from that maybe you didn't, kind of, if you would dive into a story or two of specifically hunting in Wyoming and how the day went, kind of just going through the nitty-gritty details of that hunt.
All right. I'll let Kyle start out and just talk a little bit about your hunt.
Just elk season?
Yeah.
I'll tell you about the hunt that I hunt. Yeah. So my hunt was actually kind of weird. And the reason that it was weird is because I shot a bull. We actually went down to a spot where we had heard bulls bugling their head off. And the bull that I shot, let's just go through the story of how it happened. So anyways, we come off of the side of a mountain, go through a valley basically, and come up on a big knob. And then we was hunting meadows as we was coming across them. And as we was hunting meadows, we may hunt a little different than what some people do. And in fact, we've been told that it's kind of odd, some of the things that we do when we're hunting. And one of the thing is when it's prime time, we're a lot of times we'll just kind of sneak around and just listen, do a lot of listening along with, we'll cow call every so often, but just constantly listen, because the elk is one thing that we've learned, and I don't know if it's from hunting whitetails off the ground or what it's from, but, elk is a big animal, and you can hear them moving way better than you could a whitetail. And so me and Phil and his nephew was with us, would come off and we get in this meadow. Phil's cow calling, and we sit down because we ain't heard nothing, and we hear a stick break. Probably, I don't know. We just heard one stick break, and through the years of elk hunting, a lot of times after cow calling, we'll just, after a stick breaks or whatever, just more times than not, it ends up being most likely an elk. And so it feels like, man, that's weird. And we was like, okay, well, what I'll do is I'll dump off to the backside of this meadow, me and Mason, which is Phil's nephew. Phil's like, I'll drop back and I'll cow call him. If it's a bull, we'll just try to call him off the edge of this, on this ridge, basically.
And the bull hasn't said anything.
Yeah, the bull ain't done nothing but broke a stick. And at this point, we don't know if it was a tree falling or what. We just felt, like it was odd. And so Phil, for 20, 30 minutes probably, just a little bit, just trying to coax the bull into answering or doing something to prove that it was something. He just kind of sat over there and cow called about 100 yards away from me and Mason. Well, me and Mason are sitting here glassing this ridge. The farthest part of the ridge was about 150 to 200 yards, and then as it worked its way to us, it was at the base of the ridge was about 70 or so. So me and Mason were like, dude, that's odd. So about 15 minutes into Phil calling, he sounded off one or two cow calls and he was quiet, we heard another stick break. We're like, dude, either it's a bear or it's an elk. And so we just motioned for Phil. I think I may have sent him a text message. I said, hey, come back over here. If something's moving, but we don't know what it is, could very well be a black bear. And so we sat there just very patiently for probably another, 30 minutes at least, and heard another stick break. And I don't know, did you even cow call anymore after that?
No, it's one of those situations where you're just being patient, waiting for something to happen. And that's what we've done a lot more this year, is just been patient. And so, yeah.
And so at this point, we're probably creeping up on an hour, and we've heard 2 or 3 footsteps and 2 or 3 sticks break. And I get a glimpse of some movement. I get a glimpse of some, basically about 150 yards up the side of the hill in some aspens. I could see a blonde body moving. So at this point, we're like, hey, it's either a cow elk or it's a bull elk, whatever it is. And we could see him skirting the edge, and we would just catch glimpses of him because it was super thick. Well, I had an opening that was probably, I don't know, 8-10 foot wide or so. And then I had, as far as the up and down, there was a couple tree limbs, but I had a good enough opening. It was right at 72 yards. And so Phil, we was hoping that he would come down and come down to the edge of the meadow. Well, there was a small opening. Phil had seen the horns as he was walking. And he said, hey, it's a bull, and it looks like he's going to come right here at 50 yards at the base. Well, and that was for him to turn and come towards us to try and check out whatever he was curious of, was probably the cow calls that was in that meadow. Well, he gets right to the edge of it. Instead of coming towards us, he made that spot where I was saying it was right at 72 yards, and Phil stops him. It's all on video. Phil stops him, and he's looking at him through a rangefinder. He's like, hey, 72, 72. And he was broadside, and I shoot a lot. I felt very comfortable with that shot, and I ended up shooting him. He double-lunged and died in about 40 yards. But one thing that we learned with that scenario is sometimes patience, which a lot of times people don't, relate patience with elk hunting as much as just paying attention and just seeing, what's that stick break? What was that sound? It was really different. It's kind of a different episode if you're used to elk hunting being.
Very different from what because a minute ago I told them we're super aggressive, but this one was like, it's like this year we paid attention to and try to give everything a chance to work itself out rather than, sometimes we want to force it and all that. It's just, just pay attention,
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And what you said about, being aggressive and then being patient. I think those two things can go hand in hand because there's a difference between being aggressive and being reckless. And, as far as, I'm not sure exactly, leading up to it, like leading up to that opportunity that you had, what was the scenario? What put yourself, I guess, in that place? Why were you near that meadow? Why did you pick that spot to be at? Was it just where you ended up, or was there some sort of, thought process into that?
Mostly Onyx maps and just, years of hunting and.
Well, we were on elk.
Yeah,
earlier that day. But, that close by. We that morning we knew that there had been bulls that went into that specific draw. Now, I'm not sure we knew that one was in there. I don't think we've seen that one, but
originally we just went in there just to pick it.
Oh, yeah. We definitely, I'm not sure. We'd never been down in that
we just
specific area
picked a spot
until that day.
Looked similar to other spots we had seen elk on and said, hey, this is where we're going.
Yeah, that was the first day, and I've been out there for I think this was the 5th year. That was the first day that any of us had been into that specific, drainage. We like to, so another thing, what we like to do that is probably way different than most elk hunters is we don't like to hunt the same place, twice within 3 or 4 days. And sometimes, I'm not sure, sometimes we don't hunt the same place more than once. When I say place, I'm talking about, this is, okay, so our elk hunt this year was not a spike camp. It's not hiking in and camping off your back. This is a base camp style. We're using trucks and, sometimes four-wheelers to access. And so these spots, when I say different spots, I'm talking about, different drainages, different, some places will be 30 minutes from another place, sometimes even more than that, 45 minutes to an hour. And so, I think what it does is, if you keep pressuring elk, I'm not a professional elk hunter, I guess, but when you pressure elk over and over and over again, elk are different. A deer, like a whitetail or something, you can pressure them and they might go a quarter mile away, or they might hunker into the thick stuff. But an elk will go 2 or 3 drainages and completely out of your lives, feels like sometimes, because it's nothing for an elk. They've got long legs. I've seen an elk cover some serious ground I'm talking serious ground. And so when you pressure those elk, they'll go out of that drainage and they won't come back for 5 days. And so, you just want to be careful on how much you pressure these places. And when we go into bow hunt, you're crazy to think that you don't pressure these animals, because they're smart. They use the wind to their favor, just like we try to use it to ours. And so, pressure is the biggest thing. We have to pressure them pretty hard to try to be successful with archery equipment. And so once you do that, we like to change it up. Hey, let's go hunt this over here. This looks pretty good. Sometimes we'll get into a drainage that literally it'd be hard pressed to find a pile of poop, but I think it just works out, better doing that than putting all your eggs in one basket, saying, I'm just going to stay right here in this drainage, and the elk will eventually come back. They probably will eventually. But, keep that in mind. You don't have to hunt the same exact place, twice. Just try to figure out with your mapping system on X, how to access, into places, and I think it'll work out good.
Yeah. I think there was a couple things there that stood out to me, and one of them was that you're trying to find places that are similar to where you've found elk in the past, or looking for similar type. I'm taking your words and twisting them a little bit here, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you're looking at the map and typical type areas, whether that might be terrain features or what things look like. You're trying to that you found elk in the past, and trying to find multiple places that have that similar type of stuff, so you have those other options. Is that accurate, or am I taking your words and twisting them a little bit?
No, for sure. That's pretty much spot on. You want to, if you use Onyx or any kind of Google Maps, or where you're looking at terrain features and saddles and benches and things like that, yeah, you definitely, the places that you hunt, you start figuring, okay, this is what this looks like from a satellite view, and then you try to target those same places. Elk are, in general, elk, do the same thing. In general, elk go up in the mornings and they come down in the evenings. That's in general, that's, you can almost bank on it, and at nighttime they like to move down, and in the mornings they'll start moving up and bedding. And so you just got to figure out, hey, how are these elk moving through these saddles and bedding on these benches and things like that. So yeah, that's pretty much spot on. Yeah.
And one of the other things that you were talking about, being mobile, from, being able to come back to the truck and move if you need to, that was something that it took me 3 years of hunting elk before I tried I'd read everywhere that you needed to backpack into these areas and do all this stuff. And I didn't realize at the time, but I was putting pressure on by hunting these, spots over and over again. I'd get into elk like crazy one day, and maybe something would happen where I spooked them, and I'd continue to hunt these areas thinking that, they were just going to magically show back up. But obviously they're a lot smarter than I was. And they also like to, they can cover ground in a ridiculous amount of time. For what it takes me to try to climb up the mountains and go from one place to another, they can do in just so much faster. And when, there's other people that are, doing this, as far as mainstream guys like Corey does a lot of truck camping and moving around. And when I started doing that in Idaho, it was, I killed mine on day one. So for me specifically, it wasn't, but I got lucky. But, when I was helping my buddies and we were hunting, we were able to, even though sometimes it created more work as far as maybe having to get up earlier to hike into an area to check it out, but coming back to that vehicle made you so much more mobile. You didn't feel like you were locked down to an area, because whether you to believe it or not, when you backpack into an area, you're kind of set there a little bit, or at least it takes a lot more work to get out and to move to somewhere. You're more apt to be like, yeah, I'm going to try this, for a few more days, where being able to bounce around, utilizing a vehicle or whatever that might be is, I don't know. That's kind of something that I, at least when it comes like to over-the-counter units and things that get a lot of pressure, I think that you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, for sure. Now, some things are, there are some exceptions to that, but in general, I think that you can, my opinion, I think you can be more successful being mobile than doing it the backpack style. Now, there are exceptions. There's some places that, some of those over-the-counter units and there in Colorado, and I'm sure in Idaho, some of those units are super pressured on the fringes, and it definitely makes it a little more difficult to, like you said, get in and out, and you're taxing your body quite a bit to stay mobile. But I think in the end, I think it's better to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I think you guys have given some, real world examples. It's, you guys don't hunt elk for a living. This is something that you enjoy doing. Sounds like again, like you said earlier, blue collar guys going out and just trying to make it happen. And I think, these examples are super helpful and just to be able to, I don't know, learn from that. And everyone, there's benefits to every different style of, backpack hunting, base camp, truck camp, and there's benefits and there's, downfalls to all of those different styles. I guess when you go out and do it, you'll kind of figure out your own style and, as you go along.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But, well, I do want to be respectful to your guys' time with, I know you guys are on a hunt and everything, but is there anything else that you think of that would be beneficial or things you kind of want to leave the listeners with when it comes to anything even general elk hunting, something that you'd say if you could give, a few lines that you want to leave everybody with when it comes general to elk hunting or specific to Wyoming, feel free to shoot that information out there.
So I'll kind of interject here with something I said. I had another interview on a podcast, and the guy kind of asked a similar question. And I answered it with, in order to be successful, you have to suck first. And what I mean by that is like things are not always going to go good. And it's one of the things that I've learned, in fact, all of us have, that if you're going to do a 10-day elk hunt or whatever it is, there's going to come a time frame where you're going to have to make up your mind mentally that regardless of what's going on, that you're going to get out of bed no matter what. And like we hunted, 18 days this past year. We walked a pile of miles. We packed out. Just in bow season, I think we packed out because we helped other people, not just in our group, but other groups that we were camped close to. We helped them tag out after we had tagged out. So we packed out like 10 or 12. I think you were on, 12 pack outs? Mm-hmm. I missed a couple. And so you're going to get to a point where you're going to want to quit. And for me, it's normally around day 8 to 10. I don't want to miss my family and stuff. Once I get past that, those 2 to 3 days there, normally I'm fine. And once you can get through that, then you'll just kind of like, hey, I'm here and this is what I need to do. So no matter how hardcore you are, or even if you've never done it before, you're the greatest whitetail hunter and you want to elk hunt, you're going to get to a phase where you're going to have to make up your mind no matter what. And if you'll do that, most likely your odds of success are going to increase substantially.
And I've got something following that up as far as like the Wyoming, going back to the Wyoming, I think you're trying to get some information out there with this podcast. So my advice would be obviously do your research and figure out, what season you want to go and figure out, like Wyoming Game and Fish, they put all the results out there on what units, draws rates and success rates and draw odds. And then you've obviously got, if you've never heard of Go Hunt, that might be a good tool for you to get on there, and you can check all those things pretty, it's pretty user-friendly on their website. And then, just figure out what time of year you want to hunt. That's going to obviously play a factor in when you apply and what tags you're applying for. Now, their general tag is a archery or rifle tag. And so, you can go in archery season, and then if you don't get something, then go back in October. I think their season is like the 15th or something, around the 15th. And then go for a couple days in rifle season, or just go in rifle season or just go in bow season. But, just get on there and check it out. If you can't go hunt if you don't apply. And, that's really the deal. And there are some leftover tags, but just do your research, figure out, draw odds and things like that. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, which I could be, that the general tags, I think everybody in a sense has, even if you have no points, has a chance in Wyoming. So, there's some advice for you. And they also have the special draw. So I didn't talk about this any at all. So Wyoming general, they have the regular draw, and then they call this other draw the special draw. So pretty much in the nutshell is, if you apply in the special draw, you pay a little more for your tag. I think it's like $1,300 compared to like $700. And don't quote me on those prices either, but those general prices. And the special draw would be you're paying extra to have better draw odds. And so just trying to, throw in what information that can come to my head right now. I'm pretty tired, so.
Yeah. No, that's super helpful. And I'll go at the beginning, I'll record an intro, and I'll go through some of the specifics on the different types of licenses and the costs and stuff there. But I think you're about spot on with the difference between the regular tag when you apply, and then you can fork out some extra money. It's like an additional $500, like you said, to be able to have better odds essentially. So I think that's super helpful, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your hunt to sit down and talk to me. I have a ton more questions to talk to you about, but I think for
Alaska.
Oh yeah, the Alaska caribou is in the sights, possibly for 2021. So after this podcast is over, and we're home with some sleep, we ain't even ate yet. So pizza got delivered and you called. We were stuffing breadsticks in our mouth. The other guys were eating. Yeah. So anyways, no, we're going to bug the heck out of you about, some questions on the caribou stuff. But in all honesty, man, we really need to get together. And, I think that this phone conversation seemed like we could go forever. But try to collab, do some things together. It's awesome. Always a good thing to get with other creators and do stuff, man.
Yeah, I totally agree. And feel free to pick my brain on the caribou stuff, and ask once you get some sleep and get home. I mean, I'm open to sharing anything I know with you to be able to help you out. So
cool, man. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks, guys. So can you let the listeners know where they can find all of your content at, and anything else, any other shameless plugs that you want to throw out there?
Okay, cool. So basically any platform, even including TikTok. We don't do no weird dances, but we are on every social media platform under Unguided Outdoors. And we own the domain www.unguidedoutdoors.com. And hold on one second. Someone's come upstairs. So anyways, we own the domain unguidedoutdoors.com. There's not a whole lot on the website right now. We had to get end up getting a new guy to start doing some of our merch and whatnot. And I handle, you can write us on Instagram or anywhere else, and I'll respond. So that's about it. Oh, and we have a podcast that we're starting. We started it back in, July? It's not as consistent because we mostly concentrate on YouTube. But it's just the Unguided Outdoors podcast. I think we've got 10 or 15 episodes or so. And we ain't even figured out how to call people and record stuff yet. So when we figure that out, we'll have you on there.
Well, all right. Well, I can help you out with
you can help with that.
With that, yeah, I can help you out. And with the way this year's been, I've had to do just about all of them since I'm not going to shows or events or meeting up with as many people. That's kind of what I've had to do. So I can definitely give you the tips on that. But it's cool. What
we'll do is have Beau on our podcast and go into some detail about the caribou.
There you go. Win-win for everybody.
Hey, I'm all for doing that. So let's make it happen.
Cool, man. Sounds awesome.
All right. Well, again, thanks, guys, Kyle and Phil. It was great talking to you here, and hopefully by the time I release this, you guys got a couple deer down, and I can add that to the beginning.
I hope so too. We'll let you know.
Sounds good. See you guys.
All right. Awesome, brother. We'll see you. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit eastmeetswesthunt.com, Facebook at East Meets West Outdoors, and Instagram at East Meets West Hunt. If you enjoyed today's episode, please review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.